Hi friends, I am so glad you came back for this week's lesson. Before we get started on this week's lesson, I want to just take a minute and let's talk about what we've been talking about the last 3 weeks. First of all, who can tell me what's our theme for this week? What have we been talking about, or this month? What have we been talking about? That's right, God is our shepherd. All right, the first week we just talked about what is a shepherd, and there was a Bible story from 2 Samuel that just gave us an example of what a shepherd is and what a shepherd does. And that shepherd was David. And we learned about David killing the lion and killing the bear, just trying to protect his sheep. And then he wanted to go fight Goliath. And he did that because he had all the strength and he had learned all of that, and he killed Goliath, and he learned how to do all of that just by protecting his sheep. The next week, we just talked about the shepherd and the sheep relationship, and we used a chapter in Psalms 23, and that's our memory verse for this month, to kind of learn a little bit about what a shepherd is and what a shepherd does. And in those verses, you learn how our shepherd, who is Jesus for us, how he leads us every day, he protects us every day, he guides us every day. And I hope you're working on memorizing that. We'll talk about that a little bit at the end of the lesson. And then last week, we talked about what happens, a story Jesus told about what happens when a sheep gets away from the shepherd, when a sheep wanders out. And if you remember, we talked about the story where a shepherd, Jesus told a story about a shepherd who had 100 sheep, and one of them wandered away, and the shepherd leaves the 99 sheep that are still there, and he goes after that one sheep that left, because he wants to go find that sheep and protect that sheep and make sure that sheep is okay and safe. And when he finds that sheep, he puts it around his neck and he carries it back home, and he rejoices and celebrates. And we talked about how Jesus said that is the same thing that happens when one of us goes away, and he brings us back, and God just celebrates. Everybody in heaven is celebrating because we've come back. So this week, what we're going to be talking about is the Good Shepherd. You know, we think about there's a good shepherd and a bad shepherd. You know, you can be good and bad. And our story is found in John 10, and it's 11 through 15. And I think what I'm going to do is just kind of talk about this as we read through these Bible verses. So if you want to pause, guys, you can pause it and find John 10, 11 through 15. And then I'm going to read that. We'll read that kind of together, and then we'll talk about it. So take a minute to pause if you want to. Okay. John 10, starting with verse 11. I am the good shepherd. So Jesus is telling this story, and he's saying he's the good shepherd. He's a good shepherd. And the good shepherd lays down his life for his sheep. So think about, like, for example, the story about David. David fought a lion. He fought a bear. Can you imagine fighting a lion and a bear? How dangerous that is? He could have died. He could have died trying to kill the lion and the bear. But he was willing to do that to protect the sheep that he had. So Jesus is telling us that a good shepherd would lay down his life for his sheep. Then it says the hired hand is not the shepherd who owns the sheep. So this is just somebody that they're paying to take care of the sheep. Well, sometimes those people don't really care about the sheep. And what Jesus tells us is, if you continue in that Bible verse, so when he sees the wolf coming, so there's a wolf coming, trying to attack the sheep, hurt the sheep. He says when that bad shepherd or that person that they've just hired to take care of him, when he sees the wolf coming, he abandons the sheep and he runs away. So he's not going to lay his life down. He's not going to take a chance on him getting hurt. So he just runs away and leaves the sheep. So then the wolf is going to attack the sheep and hurt the sheep. It says, then the wolf attacks the flock and scatters it. So they run off everywhere. The man runs away because he's a hired hand and he cares nothing for the sheep. So they don't really matter to him. They're not important to him. But in verse 14, what Jesus tells us, he says, I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me, just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, and I lay my life for the sheep. So Jesus is telling us that he's a good shepherd, and he's willing to give up his life for us. And in fact, we learn as we keep studying that he did lay his life down. He died for us. You know, we've talked about that in class. He died on the cross for us. So he's the good shepherd. He's our good shepherd. He leads us. He guides us. He protects us. He's willing to give up his life. He did give up his life just to protect us and for us so that we could live. So I'm going to ask you just a few questions that maybe whoever you're listening to this with, you can stop them in between the questions and talk to your mom, dad, your small group leader, whoever it is that you're with, and kind of give the answers to this. So first question, remind me some of the characteristics of a shepherd. Remind me some of the characteristics of a shepherd. So pause for just a minute, talk about that, and then when you're ready, unpause and come back. Okay, next question. What happens when a wolf tries to attack the sheep? What are the different things that can happen? All right, next question. How do wolves try and attack us? Think about that. Do wolves really try to attack us? Or are there things around us that maybe try to attack us? Is it Satan trying to get us to do something wrong? Maybe there's a friend that's trying to talk us into doing something that we know we shouldn't do. Those types of things. So talk for a minute with whoever you're with there about how do wolves, what are some things going on with you that are examples of how wolves try and attack us? Okay, next question, what does a bad shepherd do when that happens? And then our last question is, what did the good shepherd, and remember the good shepherd is who? Right, that's Jesus. What did the good shepherd already do for us? Right, he died on the cross. He's already given his life up for us. So just always think about that. Remember that, who that good shepherd is. And Psalm 23 is a wonderful, wonderful chapter for you to memorize and always go back to help you remember what it is that Jesus, that good shepherd, does for us. Now, if you're working on memorizing that, or if you haven't, go ahead and start. But when you're ready, give us a call, send us an email, a text, or something, and let us know that you can say Psalms 23. And I would love, love, love to hear you say that. And if you do, we'll try to make sure you get a Sonic drink or something like that. All right, guys, we love you, we miss you, but we're really glad to get to see you this way. Have a great week, enjoy school, and we'll see you next week. Bye.